Tessa stares at me with her glowing yellow eyes. I'm at a complete loss for words and have no idea what the right thing for me to do is. Tessa hasn't said anything to me aside from a few angry noises. However, I notice that the longer we stand there, the calmer she becomes. I can't be certain if her anger for the soldiers is the main reason she's acting this way, but it's obviously better to keep her calm considering she's clearly as strong as I am. Just as Tessa's glowing eyes begin to grow dimmer and she starts looking like her normal self again, I hear a bunch of footsteps behind me. I watch as Tessa looks away from me at whoever is behind me, and her anger instantly returns. Although I don't take my eyes off Tessa, out of the corner of my eye, I can see that nearly every soldier in the parking lot is standing behind me with their guns pointing at the two of us. I'm not sure if they're just standing like that as a precaution or if they actually plan on shooting, but I don't want to find out. I take a step away from Tessa and extend both of my arms, one towards her and the other towards the soldiers. I have to try and calm Tessa down, but she isn't going to calm down unless the soldiers lower their guns. And they won't lower their guns unless Tessa stops acting like she's about to rip all their heads off. So, for the time being, we're at a standstill. It's alright, I say, trying to address both Tessa and the soldiers. I turn to the soldiers. We don't want to hurt you. Then I turn to Tessa, who is barely paying any attention to me. And they don't want to hurt us. I had been hoping that might be enough to make the soldiers lower their guns. However, they don't move or respond. My speech does seem to calm Tessa down a little, but she's still staring intensely at the soldiers. So it doesn't seem like she's going to fully calm down anytime soon. Finally, one of the soldiers speaks up. "Kid, that girl has gone nuclear. She's not going to calm down." Almost immediately after the soldier says this, Tessa lets out another enraged scream. I'm not sure if it was the soldier's voice that set her off, but for whatever reason, she stops trying to hold back her anger. Tessa runs past me and heads straight for the soldiers. "Weapons free!" a soldier yells. As soon as I hear that, I shout, "No!" But it doesn't do any good. Some of the soldiers start firing while others move to different positions to surround Tessa. They're so tactical about it that it makes me think they shoot at angry radioactive teenage girls a lot. Nearly all the soldiers are now unloading their rifles at Tessa, but miraculously, none of their bullets seem to hit her. She runs right into a group of soldiers and begins taking each of them down faster than I would have thought possible. Every time a soldier gets in her way, Tessa punches or kicks them with such force that they go flying back. She manages to take out a third of the soldiers in under a minute, all while somehow evading their bullets. I know that I have to stop this or else someone is going to get seriously hurt. I notice the soldier who I had saved from being run over by the bus is taking cover behind a nearby jeep so Tessa won't see him and firing at her whenever there's a clear shot. It's a pretty smart strategy, one that will probably get Tessa killed. So I run over to the soldier and crouch beside him. "What the hell are you guys doing?" I ask him, outraged. "She obviously isn't in the right state of mind and you guys are trying to kill her for it?" The soldier looks at me and seems torn between helping his men and responding to me. He must figure that it's probably a good idea to calm me down so I won't charge in and start fighting his fellow soldiers too. "Don't worry," he tells me. "These aren't normal bullets. They're electric bullets that are only meant to stun or knock people unconscious. Your friend won't be harmed, but if we can't hit her, then she'll stay like this until she burns off this energy. And we have no idea how long that will take. If she manages to take out all my guys before then, she might turn on the civilians." I can hear the sincerity in the soldier's voice. He truly doesn't want to hurt Tessa, but the soldiers can't just stand aside and let her go on this rampage. The bullets being fired at her still concern me though. However, when I listen closely, I can hear a crackle of electricity, which helps reassure me that they'll only knock Tessa unconscious. So, if those bullets are the only safe way to stop her, then I'm going to help the soldiers land a shot. I'll get her away from the other soldiers. Then, wait until I tell you to take the shot. I tell the soldier. Before he can respond, I step out from behind the jeep and jog over to Tessa. There are now only a handful of soldiers left standing. One of those soldiers is checking on another who had been knocked to the ground unconscious when Tessa sees him. In seconds, she closes the gap between the two of them and grabs the soldier by the throat before he can even turn around. I watch in horror as Tessa raises the soldier above her head, choking him. With hardly any other soldiers left for her to take her anger out on, I figure Tessa will end up killing this soldier unless I stop her. "Tessa!" I yell at her. At the sound of my voice, she turns towards me with her yellow eyes still glowing with rage. She throws the soldier she's holding aside like he's nothing. He lands on the grass a few meters away, but seems to be unharmed. Before I can think of something else to say to her, another soldier to Tessa's left picks up a rifle and aims it at her. Tessa sees this and charges towards him, but I'm able to get to the soldier first, so she stops. The terrified looking soldier looks from me to Tessa, unsure of who he should be aiming at. I step towards him, slowly take the gun out of his hands, and drop it on the ground. Even though I'm not sure if Tessa can understand me, I figure that if it looks like I'm trying to help her, she might trust me enough not to attack me. My plan seems to work because she's no longer paying any attention to the soldier and is now focused solely on me. "You need to stop," I say to her. "You're hurting these people and all they're trying to do is help us. Now I know that you're still in there, Tessa. Please, try to fight whatever this is you're feeling because I know that this isn't you." For a second, it seems like I might actually be getting through to her. Then, something inside her snaps and she charges at me. She's fast, but I'm ready for her, and when she throws a punch, I'm able to dodge it. Before she has a chance to try and hit me again, I get behind her and wrap my arms around her, pinning her arms to her sides. She thrashes wildly in my arms, desperately trying to break my grip, but I hold on tight. Although it's a struggle, I manage to pick her up and turn her around, so that she's facing the Jeep where I know the soldier I had saved from getting run over is hiding. "Take the shot!" I yell at him, not knowing if he's even still there. The soldier hears me and pops out from behind the Jeep with his rifle aiming at Tessa. When she sees the gun, Tessa thrashes even more in my arms and I'm barely able to keep her restrained. Luckily, the soldier pulls the trigger and I see a flash of blue light come out of the barrel. I watch as the blue bullet made of pure electricity flies towards us. It hits Tessa right in the chest and the electricity flows across her body for a few seconds until she falls unconscious into my arms. I carry her over to one of the nearby gurneys and carefully lay her down. As I'm checking her pulse to make sure that she's alright, the soldier who had taken the shot walks over to me. "Nice shot," I tell him. He nods. "Thank you for helping us stop her. I promise that we won't hurt her, but we're going to have to take her with us to run some tests." I assumed that he would say something like that. "That's fine, but I'm coming too." The soldier looks a bit taken back. It's almost like not many people willingly volunteer to be taken away by a group of soldiers. "We were hoping that you would agree to come with us," he says. "You were exposed to the same radiation as her, so we're going to have to run some tests on you as well." I pause for a second to think over what I'm agreeing to. I am willing to be taken away to God knows where by a bunch of soldiers who won't even tell me who they are. Although my life is far from perfect, I'll still be leaving behind my friends, who haven't seen me since I ran into the burning school. And of course, my mom, who will be home in about an hour waiting for me. How will she react when she finds out her son has been exposed to some sort of radiation and had to be taken away to get tested on? My father's death had almost been too much for her to handle, so I can't help but worry about how she'll take this news. Can I at least call my mom before I go? The soldier looks at me apologetically and shakes his head. "No, I'm sorry, but it's best if we get you two out of here as quickly as possible. And calling your loved ones right now will really slow us down. But don't worry, you'll have a chance to call her later. In the meantime, we'll send a few agents to visit your mom and explain the situation." I turn away and look back down at Tessa, trying to decide if this is the right choice. A little voice in the back of my head is telling me that it's probably a really bad idea to go with a group of secretive people armed with advanced guns who may or may not even be part of the military. However, as I look at Tessa, all I can think about is the anger in her glowing yellow eyes as she attacked the soldiers with no remorse. As concerned as I am about how my mom will react to all this, going with these soldiers is still the best option. "Okay," I tell the soldier while still looking at Tessa, "I'll go with you. When do we leave?" By now, most of the soldiers have recovered from the beating they took from Tessa and are getting to their feet. A few of them are making their way towards us, while others are checking on the small crowd of students who had witnessed the whole thing. I'm so distracted watching the soldiers that I don't even hear the soldier behind me draw his gun. He takes a step towards me and says, "Right now." The soldier then shoots me in the back and the electricity instantly causes every muscle in my body to tense up and convulse. Despite the intense pain, I manage to stay on my feet. With electricity flowing all over me, I slowly turn around to look at the soldier, who is staring at me, his eyes wide with surprise that I'm still conscious. Just as the electricity begins to dissipate, the soldier shoots me 2 more times. As soon as the second of the 2 shots hits me, the pain becomes too much to bear and I fall to the ground unconscious. I slowly open my eyes, but it takes me a few seconds to register where I am. My head is pounding and my mouth is dry and tastes like copper. Although I'm sitting down, it feels like I'm moving, and when I finally come to my senses, I realize that I am moving. I'm in the back of a bus, but it isn't a school bus. It's the tricked out prison bus that the soldiers had driven to the school. My head still feels a bit foggy from the electrical shock, but from what I can tell, the inside of the bus is actually pretty nice. Instead of rows of seats, there are 2 long benches attached to the walls that face each other, and the floor of the bus is covered in black mats. At the back of the bus, there's an exit door, but I noticed that it doesn't have a handle, so it can only be opened from the outside. There's also a door leading to a small room, which I assume is the bathroom. At the front of the bus is a wall of protective glass that separates me from the 2 soldiers sitting in the driver's and passenger seats. I'm not sure if the soldiers know that I'm awake yet, so I figure I should walk up and see how they'll react. With some effort, I managed to get to my feet. My entire body is aching, but I can't tell if it's from the electricity, the fire, the school bus that ran into me, or the meteor that fell on me, but it's probably a mixture of everything. This has been a rough day. As I begin walking towards the front of the bus, I notice that there's something on the floor dragging behind me. I look down and find that my left ankle has a metal cuff around it with a chain attached to it that's bolted to the floor. The chain is long enough that I can walk around the back of the bus freely, but I still don't like having it there because it makes me feel like a prisoner, which I suppose I am. I try my best to ignore the chain and continue walking up to the front of the bus. It's a bit difficult to walk considering my head is pounding and the occasional bump on the road makes me stumble. Fortunately, I don't have to walk far because the soldier in the passenger seat turns around and notices me. The soldier takes what looks like a speaker for a ham radio out from the dashboard and holds it up to his mouth. There's a crackle of static from the speakers above me, and then the soldier's voice comes through. "Mr. Davis, please do not attempt to leave this bus or harm us in any way, or we will be forced to knock you unconscious once again. Now please, go sit back down across from Miss Walker." My head is so foggy that I didn't even realize Tessa is on the bus with me. I turn around and sure enough, there she is sitting unconscious on the bench across from me. Even though she's knocked out and her eyes are closed, I'm still worried that she'll wake up, glare at me with her glowing yellow eyes, and try to attack me. This thought keeps me on edge. However, I do what the soldier says and sit back down across from her. Once I do, the same voice comes over the speakers again. "Thank you for your cooperation. There are clothes beside you if you would like to change." I look beside me and find a neatly folded change of clothes. I quickly put on the shirt and sweater that they left me, thankful that I no longer have to walk around shirtless, and am about to change into the pants as well, but I realize that it's impossible to do with the cuff around my ankle. As if the soldiers read my mind, the cuff around my ankle suddenly falls off and lands on the floor, leaving my ankle unrestrained. I glance over at the soldiers, surprised that they had just taken off my small bit of restraint. "The cuff is magnetic," the passenger explains over the radio. "We can detach and reattach it from here so that you can change and put on a pair of sneakers more easily. Once you finish changing, you will put the cuff back around your ankle so that I can reactivate it. I apologize for making you wear it, but with your demonstrated strength, we cannot allow you to walk around this bus freely." Although I'm annoyed at the soldiers for knocking me out and keeping me restrained on this bus, considering they had just watched me stop a bus with my bare hands and witnessed Tessa nearly take out their entire squad, I suppose their caution is justified. I quickly change out of my half-burnt jeans into the pants they had laid out for me. As I put on the socks and running shoes that they had also left for me, I note that although the clothes and shoes are an almost perfect fit, they're at least 2 sizes bigger than what I would normally wear. But considering all the incredible things I did in the past few hours, my sudden growth spurt really shouldn't surprise me. After I finish getting dressed, I check the pockets of my old pants and find my wallet and the picture of my father that I took from home. Surprisingly, my wallet is pretty well undamaged, but the picture is in rough shape from the fire. One of its edges was burned, the small cracks that previously ran across the corners of the photo had grown even bigger, and the image is now partly discolored. I stick the picture in the same pocket as my wallet and try not to think about how it can easily fall apart the next time I pull it out. The soldier notices that I'm now fully dressed and says, "Can you please put the ankle restraint back on?" I begrudgingly do as he says and pull the loose cuff back up my ankle. As soon as I do, the passenger pushes a button beside his seat and the cuff closes around my ankle. It isn't as uncomfortable as before because it's now wrapped around my pants, but that still doesn't make me hate wearing it any less. I look over and see the soldier noticing my discomfort. He decides to take pity on me. "I know this must be a scary thing to go through, but I promise we will answer your questions when we get to our destination. For now, I'll activate the projector so you can watch some TV to take your mind off things." The remote is attached to the projector, and if you begin to feel uneasy in any way, then please let us know immediately. As soon as the soldier says this, a panel in the ceiling opens up and a white projector that's aiming at the front of the bus lowers down. I walk over to grab its remote, grateful for the entertainment, but I can't help but think about what the soldier said about how if I felt uneasy, I should let them know. The soldier was clearly just trying to be kind, but there also sounded like there was an undertone to what he was saying. Like, if you feel like your eyes are about to turn yellow, then you better tell us so we can electrocute you again. I tried taking my mind off that thought by turning on the projector. When I do, the protective glass turns black and becomes a giant screen. It's a clever design, because now that I can't see the soldiers, it helps make me not worry about them as much. I sit back down on the bench and begin scrolling through their library of shows, which is surprisingly plentiful. The only downside to the projector is that since the bench I'm sitting on is facing the other side of the bus, I have to turn my neck to see the screen, which is a bit uncomfortable. I suppose they usually don't let their prisoners watch TV. Nonetheless, I turn on an episode of Family Guy and attempt to relax. Normally, I would have loved an excuse to sit back and watch TV for a few hours. However, I can't focus on the show. I keep finding myself glancing over at Tessa, who may still be unconscious for now, but she'll eventually wake up. When she does, which version of Tessa will it be? Will I be comforted by a friend, or attacked by a raging monster? It's difficult to tell how much time has passed since I woke up on the bus. I basically spend all that time watching TV, thinking of the best way to escape the bus, and worrying about Tessa. However, after doing this for hours, boredom finally kicks in and I begin getting antsy. I pause the episode of Trailer Park Boys that I'm watching, having switched over to that show after I got tired of Family Guy. I exit the app I'm using to watch TV and discover that the projector has an app where I can listen to music. Since my earphones are in my backpack that I think I'd left back at the school parking lot, and Ty still has my phone, I've had no way of listening to music, which I really miss. Despite the fact that I'm still a prisoner of some secret group of soldiers, and I'm sitting across from a girl who might wake up and try ripping my head off, I find myself smiling as I search through a long list of songs. After a few seconds of searching, I find a particular Elton John song that always cheers me up. So I turn up the volume and hit play. Familiar lyrics begin blaring through the speakers, and I'm sure the two soldiers up front probably think I've gone crazy. At first, I just listen to the song, but soon my foot is tapping and then I can't help but begin singing along. Oh, Saturday night's alright for fighting, get a little action in. Get a bottle oil, there's a diesel train, gonna set this dance alight. Cause Saturday night's the night I like, Saturday night's alright.
You're a pretty good singer.
A voice beside me says. I jump in surprise before quickly pausing the music and looking over to see that Tessa is awake. She looks back at me with her normal brown eyes, and I let out a sigh of relief that this is just regular Tessa, who, despite everything that happened, I still have a crush on. Although I should only feel relief that Tessa seems like she's back to normal, I'm honestly pretty embarrassed that she had heard my awful singing voice. I try not to let her know that though, as I smile and sit down next to her. Well, you're a kind audience. Then my tone becomes a bit more serious. How are you feeling? Tessa looks utterly exhausted. There are dark rings under her half-open eyes and she's leaning her head back against the wall. Even though I'm sitting right next to her, she won't meet my eyes.
My head hurts a bit, but other than that, I'm okay,
she says. It sounds like she's lying, but I don't question her on it. Instead, I ask, do you remember anything that happened at the school? Tessa becomes really quiet for a moment. She then finally meets my eyes, and I can see that tears are starting to run down her cheeks.
Yes, I remember what I did to all those poor soldiers. I didn't want to, but it was like there was someone else who took control of me. All my fear and anger just came out and made me want to hurt them.
As Tessa begins to cry, I realize that I had never really tried to comfort a crying girl before. I don't know if I had the social skills to handle this, but I'm going to have to try my best. I awkwardly put my arm around her. I know that you didn't want to do what you did at the school, and I think the soldiers know that too. None of them were seriously injured, and you obviously couldn't control what you were doing, so you have nothing to feel bad about, Tessa. She nods.
I guess so, but I still feel terrible about it.
I would too, but feeling guilty just means that you're a good person with a conscience. But you're going to have to forgive yourself, or else that guilt will eat you up inside. She nods again, agreeing with me. Then she smiles and says,
That's pretty good advice. Where'd you hear it?
I smile back. Oh, just from inspiring movie scenes. Tessa manages to pull herself together and seems to be a bit more relaxed. I try to act like the advice I gave her was no big deal, but the truth is that I have been trying to take that advice since my father died. I've blamed myself for his death for so long, and I'm still unable to forgive myself. Hopefully Tessa is better at taking my advice than I am. The two of us sit in silence for a few minutes. While staring out the window, Tessa asks me,
"What was I like when I attacked those soldiers?"
I try reading her expression to find out what she's thinking, but it's difficult since she's still looking out the window. A part of me doesn't want to tell her how angry, violent, and frankly, scary she was at the school. However, I figure that if she hears how she wasn't acting like herself, it might help her forgive herself. "It was obvious that you weren't yourself," I begin. "You were so full of anger that you couldn't even speak, and your eyes were glowing bright yellow." Tessa finally turns away from the window to look at me.
"Yellow?"
She asks. "Yeah, they were actually the same color as the meteor was when it first landed." She nods.
"It all happened so fast that some details are kind of blurry, but I do remember that it was like I was looking through yellow-tinted sunglasses."
"Well, I've heard of people getting so angry that they see red, so maybe it's like that with you, except you see yellow," I tell her. She starts to look a bit uncomfortable, so I decide to drop it. "So, I don't really know where we're going, but I'm guessing that these guys are going to make sure that whatever happened to you at the school doesn't happen again,"
"Well, then I hope we get there soon,
she says.
because I never want that to happen to me again."
Tessa then goes back to staring out the window. As soon as she looks away, I realize that I still have my arm around her. I awkwardly lift my arm off her shoulder because it doesn't seem like she needs comforting anymore. "Don't worry," I tell her. "I promise that you'll never have to go through that again." I try my best to sound as sincere as possible, but the truth is, I have no idea if what happened to Tessa at the school will happen to her again. All I can do is hope that these soldiers will be able to help her. The rest of the bus ride is torture. I take pity on Tessa and let her pick the TV show for the rest of the trip, and she chooses a show called Grey's Anatomy. It's some sort of overdramatic medical show about a bunch of doctors who sleep with each other, which I have zero interest in watching. Tessa really seems to like it though, so I don't say anything about how much the show bores me. At one point, just as the sun is starting to set, I decide that I'm tired of having no idea where we're heading. So I walk up to the protective glass that I can't see through since the projector is playing and ask the soldiers, "So where are you guys taking us anyway?" The passenger's voice once again comes over the speakers. "That's classified, but we'll be there soon." Apparently, my definition of soon is very different from the soldiers because hours after I had asked him that, we are still on the road. Finally, as I'm seconds away from dying of boredom, the bus turns down an old dirt road that's free of cars. We drive down this road for about 10 minutes until the bus pulls up to a gate and stops in front of two armed soldiers. Curious about what's happening, I turn off the projector so that Tessa and I can see through the glass barrier. The two soldiers at the gate are dressed identically to all the other soldiers we've encountered. They walk up to the front door of the bus. The driver opens the door for them and the passenger shows one of them what looks like a badge. As the first soldier inspects the badge, the second strains his neck to look at us and then turns back to the passenger. It's tough to hear what he's saying through the barrier, but when I focus my hearing, I think it goes something like, "So these are the retractors that raised all hell at that high school?" The driver nods as the first soldier passes the badge back to the passenger. He then says, "I hear they're different from the others. Do you think that means they'll survive?" As soon as I hear that, I begin to panic. My heart starts pounding so loudly that I can't hear any more of their conversation. Although these soldiers are incredibly secretive, I honestly trusted that they were going to help Tessa and I. But after hearing this, I feel like an idiot for trusting them, and it seems like we might not actually be safe with them. The soldiers step away from the bus and open the gate. As the bus drives through, I look out the window to see that we're driving down a long asphalt road that leads to a couple of large buildings up on the left. I strain to try and make out what the buildings are, but they're still too far away. I'm so preoccupied staring out the window that I don't even notice Tessa move from her bench to sit next to me. I almost jump when she starts talking.
"Did you hear what that soldier said?"
She has a terrified look on her face, and I want to say something to make her feel better, but I also don't want to lie to her, especially since I'm just as freaked out. "Yeah, I heard." Her face turns pale.
"I thought you said that we could trust these people."
"I thought we could," I say, trying to defend myself. They seemed like they just wanted to help us.
"Well, that's obviously not the case. Do you think that means they'll survive? It sounds like they plan to kill us."
I notice that Tessa's face has turned completely pale, and she's now breathing heavily, as if she's about to have a full-on meltdown. Her expression is somewhere between fear and anger, and I realize that she wore this exact same look back at the school, right before her eyes turned yellow and she started attacking everyone. Listen, Tessa, we might have just misheard them, because if they wanted to hurt us, they would have just kept us unconscious for the entire bus ride. So just try and stay calm, okay? She's not even listening to me.
We have to get off this bus!
She whispers. What?
As soon as they take us off this bus and into wherever this is, we're not going to be able to escape. We have to leave now or we won't get another chance.
I meet Tessa's gaze and find that the whites of her eyes seem to be glowing a bit brighter than usual. Instantly, I realize that her eyes are beginning to turn yellow. Tessa, look, you're not thinking clearly. Just please try and calm down. Completely ignoring me, Tessa bends down and pulls on her ankle, breaking it off with ease. I look up to the front of the bus to see if the soldiers notice, but they don't seem to be paying us any attention. I feel something pull on my ankle, and I look down just as Tessa yanks off my ankle cuff too.
What's the best way to escape? Because we need to get off this bus right now!
She practically yells at me. Her eyes are getting brighter by the second, and I know that the only way to calm her down and stop her from going completely ballistic is to get her off this bus. Come with me, I say as I walk to the back of the bus. The bus's back door may not have a handle, but that won't be a problem. The soldiers still haven't noticed what we're up to, but I know as soon as I do this, there'll be no turning back. However, Tessa needs to get off this bus, so I take a step back and kick the door as hard as I can. It goes flying outside, and I'm greeted by a starry night sky. Alarms begin blaring in the bus, and I hear the soldiers yelling at us to stop what we're doing. It takes my eyes a moment to adjust to the sudden darkness, but when they do, I see two army jeeps following closely behind the bus. The jeeps have to swerve to avoid the door that lands right in front of them. As I feel the bus beginning to slow down, I turn to Tessa and ask, "Are you sure about this?" She nods.
Let's go.
I jump out of the moving bus and land on the road as easily as someone might jump off a bench. Tessa jumps right after me and lands just a few meters up the road. The two of us look at each other and then take off running away from the bus and jeeps. I can hear the two jeeps come to a stop right behind us, and soldiers begin quickly getting out. Tessa falls behind me a bit, so I slow down to let her catch up.
Where should we go?
She asks me. I quickly look around in all directions and realize where we are. The road that we were driving here on isn't a road, it's a runway. The buildings that I could see in the close distance are actually airplane hangars. We're in a high security military base and there are giant fences surrounding us no matter which direction we run in. Defeated, I stop running. Tessa stops too, but looks annoyed.
What are you doing? Come on, let's go!
Despite how fast the two of us can run, the soldiers from the jeeps are gaining on us. We maybe have a few minutes before they catch up to us if we don't keep running. But there's nowhere to run. We're trapped. Look around, Tessa, I tell her. We're in a military base that's surrounded by fences. There's nowhere to go. She takes a quick look around and realizes that I'm right.
No,
She says, looking like she's about to cry.
there has to be a way out.
I put my hand on her shoulder. Tessa, let's just give these guys a chance. Maybe they aren't as bad as we think. Before Tessa can respond, we both hear movement close by. As soon as we turn around to see what it is, we're hit by a blinding light from the headlights of two vehicles. Listen to Mr. Davis, Tessa, a man's voice says from behind one of the vehicles. After my eyes adjust to the bright headlights, I can see that the vehicles are two more army jeeps that had parked right in front of us, but we didn't notice. About half a dozen soldiers stand around the jeeps with rifles aiming at us. The man who spoke walks out from behind the jeep so that we can get a better look at him. The man has on a similar uniform to the other soldiers, except it looks a bit more formal. Although he's the only soldier not pointing a gun at us, I notice that he has a pistol holstered on his belt. It takes me a second to realize that this is the same man who was at the school yesterday warning Mr. Porter about something. Mr. Porter had said that the man was pretending to be a soldier, but that clearly isn't true. Tessa gasps beside me when the man steps out from behind the jeeps, but she doesn't say anything. I look over at her and notice that her eyes have gone back to normal, and she seems to have calmed down a bit. Whoever this guy is, Tessa clearly recognizes him. The man raises his arm and then lowers it, signaling the soldiers to lower their guns. When they do, the man steps forward and extends his arm like he wants me to shake his hand. "My name is General Brian Walker," he says to me, "and I would like to welcome the two of you to the NRC. I step forward and shake his hand. All this is almost too much to process. However, my brain just about manages to form one question. I turn to Tessa and ask, "Walker, is he?" She nods.
Yep, that's my dad.
Hello everyone, and thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this chapter, then please remember to leave a like on the video and subscribe to my channel. New episodes of Strength drop on Tuesdays and Fridays, but if you'd like to see the chapters early and support the channel for only $5 a month, then head on over to my Patreon page. Link is in the description. Also, you can purchase the full paperback novel on my website if you're in Canada, or on Amazon if you live outside of Canada. Thanks again, and I'll be back in a few days with the next episode.